Hey guys, I gotta ask you something real quick. Are you paying way too much for your wireless bills? I know certain people who will pay 40, 50, even 80, $100 a month on wireless bills. Well, we've partnered with Mint Mobile to help give you a better opportunity. Some of you may know Mint Mobile from the Ryan Reynolds commercials, who is actually a part owner of the company. But Mint Mobile is as legit as it gets with offering premium wireless plans for only $15 a month, guys. And you don't have to sacrifice coverage or any other speed or data plans that you have. Mint Mobile is built on the largest 5G network, so it helps keep costs low and it sells directly to you online rather than having to go through salespeople and going into these big companies and trying to smooth talk deals. So the question is really simple, guys. Why are you paying so much when you could get the same thing, same coverage on the same network for a lot less? All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, plus lightning fast 5G and free mobile hotspots. They even have premium family plans for you as well. And guys, the great thing is it only takes 15 minutes to switch to Mint Mobile. Believe me, I have myself done it. I've even helped my girlfriend get involved in it. It is very simple and very easy to get started. You can actually even get a special limited time offer where you get an unlimited plan, which is normally only $30 a month for just $15 a month. That price is already pretty low, but it's basically cutting the price in half if you sign up right now. If you guys are interested in seeing what Mint Mobile can do for you, be sure to use our link, trymintmobile.com/bringthejuice. And like I said, guys, get half off on a premium plan for you when you sign up. Stop paying so much for your family plan now or your regular wireless bill and switch to Mint Mobile. Believe me, you're going to enjoy it.
What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Cody and Derek, back for another episode, guys. And we are 8 days through training camp so far. Definitely been some interesting storylines to follow. Definitely been some interesting things, good and bad, through camp so far. So we wanted to kind of give you really 4 surprises for camp. We couldn't think of any more. I think 4 is a good number, Derek, because there have been some surprises, like I mentioned, either good or bad in that department. And so wanted to kind of talk about some of the biggest surprises thus far through camp. Now, obviously, the Colts, like I mentioned, are only 8 practices in. They have their first preseason game on Saturday. So still fairly early into training camp. But nonetheless, there's some surprises already. We can start with, I think, the one, Derek. We can just start with the negative one because I think we have 1 negative and 3 positive ones. The first negative is obviously the Jonathan Taylor situation with the contract. You know, we knew that, Taylor, prior to camp and stuff, he had talked about how he, didn't love how the running back market was and all that stuff, Derek. But I guess to the degree of where he was a few months ago and where he is now or where he's been recently, it's just a big surprise in the shift of his behavior, in the shift of his kind of demands, if you will. And kind of like him saying things like, I want to be a Colt for life, to I want to be traded. I don't want to be on this team. So just all that with the contract stuff, the agent, all that garbage that we talked about before. But nonetheless, it is a surprise and unfortunately not in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, that was such a weird and interesting predicament that we found ourselves in. I don't think anyone would have ever seen this coming. And you're now even seeing like the national media reacting the same way that Colts fans are, kind of talking about how, like ever since JT, switched agents in the middle of the offseason and decided to do that, it's been a completely different narrative for him ever since then. And it's been the same thing over and over. And I'm not 100% sure on if this is going to get resolved or when this is going to get resolved. But nevertheless, it has been the biggest storyline of the Indianapolis Colts offseason so far. It certainly isn't the biggest one you would like to have on the team. You want it to be more about Anthony Richardson than anything else. But we're in this situation, and hopefully at some point it can get resolved.
Yeah, and again, the first couple weeks, I feel like it was a lot more upfront, a lot more pressing, a lot more coverage on it, right? A lot more drama, certainly at that point. It definitely seems like in the last couple weeks, things have kind of calmed down a little bit. I think pretty much like after, I think like a week, a little over a week ago, things really were ramping up with JT requesting the trade. And then more so as the week went on this past week and going into this week, it feels like things have kind of quieted down. I know that Pat McAfee on his show said a couple days ago that it seems like the situation is potentially getting better. So hopefully that is the case, and the Colts and Jonathan Taylor can figure out, more of a longer term solution maybe after the season, kind of when Irsay and company probably want to look to extend him and everything. But nonetheless, you're right. It was pretty much everything that people were talking about at the beginning of training camp, which is just wild because like Anthony Richardson should be the thing we're talking about during training camp. Like, and it's starting to get back to that now. But like for a while, it's just like, this is totally just unnecessary and just things that your young team doesn't need. Right. And so it was just a distraction, unfortunately. So hopefully it calms down and they can, figure out a solution for both the Indianapolis Colts and Jonathan Taylor so that he can support Anthony Richardson this year. He can get off PUP, all that kind of stuff here in the coming weeks. So with that being said, that was the first negative surprise that we had. I think the second one, Derek, was one that I think we thought potentially could be another negative, but it actually has been a pretty big positive so far, and that's been the progression of Shaquille Leonard, right? Chris Ballard came out right before camp, and I thought he was pretty adamant, pumping the brakes on Shaquille Leonard getting out there, right? He was pretty trying to temper expectations as much as possible. And then what happened? Shaquille Leonard goes out there day one and does more than any of us could possibly have imagined. And eventually he's progressed his way back. And just a few days ago, he's progressed into kind of the final stage of what you want to see as far as getting on the field, working on 11-on-11 work. He's still got a ways to go in terms of getting fully back to where, he wants to be as far as the maniac. But he even said himself, he's starting to see glimpses of the player that he used to be back 2021 through 2018. And so with that, it's just it's been a surprise. And honestly, Derek, I don't know what your thoughts are, but it's been shocking for me to see how much Shaquille Leonard has already done, because I remember you asked me the question a few weeks ago, how confident are you in Shaquille Leonard? And I wasn't. I was I am not going to believe it till I see it. And so I'm starting to believe a little bit more, until he's obviously on the field and is back to the maniac. I'm still not fully there, but I'm definitely surprised up to this point how much he's done with the Colts.
Yeah, I think Ballard's comments in regards to Shaq, I think he recognized what happened last year with Shaq Leonard and, trying to promise people he was going to be back before he was actually capable of being back. And that kind of offset some people. And I think this time Ballard was just being he'll be on there when he's on there. We're not going to give anybody any indication because who knows how he's going to react when, practicing gets to going. But I am shocked just as you, because I didn't think we'd start seeing Leonard back on the field until right now, this week. This would be the week I would expect him to be back.
Right,
and
just on the field at all.
And even on the field at all.
Right.
Doing the individual drills, maybe getting a snap or two of some 7-on-7s, doing all that, not being 100% with all of the first team reps on defense all the time. I would not have expected him to be at this point right now, and just looking as good as he is right now, with all things considered, being a part of the first team defense and looking like the one player that we once knew in Shaq Leonard. So it's been a surprise and it's been great. And I think a lot of people, hold the same kind of stance as you do, still not wanting to say anything until he is back 100% and back on the field for real games. But Cody, even now looking at Shaq Leonard just in practice, what he looks like now, he already looks a million times better than what he did last year at any point at all. Even when he was cleared to play in week 4 of the NFL season last year when he got a concussion and then ultimately hurt himself again. He didn't even look as good then as he does now, like in regards to his rehab and everything else. So it's a shock, but it's a great surprise to see the maniac back out there on the field and acting and looking like the player we all once knew.
Yeah, Gus Bradley, Richard Smith, they said that Sunday was the best day for Shaquille Leonard. So it definitely seems like he's on the up and up in terms of ramping things up and becoming, that player, because really, Derek, he missed a lot of time. He missed all of the spring last year. He missed pretty much the entire season. He played one, 2 or 3 games like last year. And so he really missed a good majority of the season. So really, Shaq hasn't played any meaningful football in like over a year. Like, if you really think about it, like impactful football where he was. So, yeah, definitely is huge for him. And he's even said, man, he feels so much better night and day from where he was a year ago. So that's definitely awesome news for Shaq, and definitely a very welcomed surprise here to have him as healthy as he is, participating in the live sessions and stuff like he is. Definitely did not anticipate here a few weeks ago seeing Shaq be at the place he is now. So great surprise for sure. I think the next one, Derek, has to be also the progression of Anthony Richardson so far. I mean, we knew he was coming in. He was going to be raw. He was going to split reps with Gardner Minshew, right? And for the most part, they've split reps. I feel like early on, they split a lot more reps, like 50-50, like Minshew would have a day, then Richardson would have a day. But it feels like the last 3 or 4 practices, Derek, I think it's been Minshew 1 day and Richardson 3 days, right? It's been that kind of thing where Richardson now has kind of taken over the snap count a little bit more, and he's been progressing, especially the last 2 practices, right? He was right around like 55, 56% before the last 2 practices when he was practicing, and now he's up at around 61%. So if that tells you how well he's done the last couple practices, that should indicate everything. But I think just the amount of first-team reps he's getting right now, Derek, I know feels like just recently even, like I think right now he's out snapping Minshew in total between 8 practices, like 25-ish reps more than Minshew with the first team. But like, that's still a significant amount, especially considering, he's taken all the reps in 3 of the last 4 practices. So I don't know what your thoughts are, but I'm definitely surprised that they are giving Richardson as much run with the ones, I guess, because we just didn't know with him. Right, because we saw in the spring, every time the media was out there, Minshew was with the ones. So you thought, all right, they're going to just progress him along. But it feels like the momentum has been building, Derek, for Anthony Richardson being the starter out there week 1. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it definitely seems like the momentum and what people are seeing right now and kind of where it's trending would potentially indicate that.
Yeah, and of course, I'm going to do a video here soon about that same thing. But I mean, I think the only reason that we were kind of shocked about it or weren't shocked about it at first is because we all didn't know what to expect from Anthony Richardson when he first got out to training camp. But I think that, it's not a shock when you look at the production that both of these guys have displayed in the first team reps and looking at what they've done and how Anthony Richardson has continued to get better. Just 2 days after his worst practice of his entire training camp so far, he proceeds to then have his most accurate day ever after 2 days later with the 2s, and then does the same exact thing the next day with the 1s, and actually looks even better with the 1s. So, it just goes to show you he's progressing, and whatever plan Shane Steichen has involved with Anthony Richardson, it's clearly coming together, and it's clear that Anthony Richardson is picking it up. And we got to give credit to Anthony Richardson, who's putting that time in, right? Like all these guys can put some time in, but Anthony Richardson, we've said it before, Anthony Richardson needed it the most. And it sure seems like he is the one that is taking the initiative to get that stuff done. And it's showing in the reps. It's showing in the reps. The Steichen's not doing it just because. He's doing it because Richardson is showing that potential, showing that promise, putting in the work and is getting the extra reps because of it. And in those plays, he's making plays. He's making the big time throws down the field. He's working in the pocket. He's making the throws that need to be made. That's the great thing with Anthony Richardson right now. And I'm very impressed with how he has progressed so far. I didn't think that, honestly, Cody, I didn't think there would be any days in training camp where Anthony Richardson just made you go, wow, like that's a guy. That looks like the guy, right? Like I didn't know if we would get any of that in training camp this year. But sure enough, I mean, there's been multiple practices where Anthony Richardson has shown people like, this guy might actually have it under control a little bit. Of course, there's still going to be some more things that need to be done, but at the end of the day, the progress he's made from where he was to start and where he is right in this moment, very impressive.
Absolutely, for sure. Then the final thing we want to talk on is some of the young, unproven guys who have gotten more of an opportunity just because of either circumstances with other players, or maybe they've just kind of taken on a bigger role just by their play. I want to highlight three guys here. Two of the guys, just because I think there's been a lot of corners hurt. Obviously you got to talk about Darrell Baker, who just kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, 25 years old, like nobody really knew who this guy was, but seems like every time you hear his name, he's making a play out there. And then obviously Jalen Jones as well, who's been the only healthy rookie up to a couple days ago. So both those guys have been making, some splashes in that secondary. And then Sagan Alubi, who was an undrafted free agent in 2022, a guy that flew under the radar. Nobody really knew who he was, but he's a guy that's come out and has definitely made some highlight plays in terms of some big hits that he's had, and definitely has impressed some people within the organization so far. Don't know if he's going to make the roster or not. I know a lot of people thought, guys like Cameron McGrone, guys, like Grant Stewart are maybe going to fill that kind of another number 4 linebacker. But Alubi's definitely been a stud so far through camp. So 3 guys that really we didn't expect maybe to have a ton of impact just because of where they were drafted or not drafted. Or the situations coming in and the expectations. But these 3 guys in particular have definitely surprised.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of those every year with the Indianapolis Colts. They get a couple of guys that outperform expectations by a long shot, especially on the defensive side. We had that same issue last year with I believe it was the linebacker group. I mean, how many linebackers we said had a shot at making this roster? So, that is what it is, right? But in regards to especially the corners, I mean, let's talk about it. I mean, the guys, for as young as this group is, some of them still haven't even actually been on the field yet. Julian Blackmon hasn't been on the field all of training camp yet. They're expecting him to be back probably by next week. Brents has only gotten back on the field the last 2 days. So he won't miss the first week of practices. And, Darius Rush has had a few issues every once in a while. I mean, it's been the guys that nobody thought of going into training camp. They're the ones that are getting all these reps. Darrell Baker, like you said, nobody knew who Darrell Baker was coming into this training camp, and now everybody knows about him because he's making all the plays in the secondary. So that's a huge thing. And then Jalen Jones, who was the talk of yesterday's practice, had a couple really great reps against Mike Strawn in the one-on-ones and the 11-on-11 stuff. So, I talked about it. Jalen Jones was going to get those reps with Juju not being there. Is Jalen going to capitalize on it? And yesterday he for sure did. So, I mean, it's been awesome to see some of these young guys get these chances and actually, put up a little bit of a fight, for some of these, for all things considered when it comes to this new offense they're facing.
Yep. For sure. So, guys, those are some of the biggest surprises here with Indianapolis Colts training camp, about a week or so in. Let us know your thoughts overall on these different surprises. Have there been any other surprises that maybe we missed that you guys would say have been big surprises to you? Let us know all those things in the comments below. But, guys, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate all the support. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe, all that good stuff. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Thanks as always. And as always, go Colts.